Hey, what's going on, guys? Rim Gaming here, back in another video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to play Guardian Druid in Season 3 of The War Within. This is going to be a Mythic Plus guide, kind of aimed at beginners or people just kind of coming back to Mythic Plus, maybe coming back to Guardian Druid. You skipped a couple seasons, and you're just needing a quick refresher. Hopefully, by the end of watching this video, you guys have enough information to be able to complete at least up to a 10 key on your own. That's kind of the standard that I like to set for these videos. So we're going to cover everything that you guys need to know. If you want to run the exact same talents that we're running in this specific video, I'm going to leave a import code in the description of the video. You can check that out. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first spell I'm going to go over here is our Thrash. So our Thrash is going to generate some rage for us. It's also going to apply a bleed effect. Now, one thing that's kind of unique about Thrash is it can actually stack up multiple times. So if we come over here to some training dummies and we Thrash, and then if I Thrash again here in 3 seconds, go ahead and watch our timer here. You'll see that there's a 2 above it now, and that will stack up to 5 times. So it's very important to not let your Thrash fall off. Up next, we have our Maul. So Maul costs 40 rage, and this is going to be one of your rage dumps. Another way that you can dump rage is going to be through one of your key defensives here, Iron Fur. So Maul is going to be if you just need more damage and you're not taking a bunch of damage. And Iron Fur is what you're going to be using your rage on if you need to be playing a little bit more defensively. Now, one thing that's kind of unique about Iron Fur, very similar to Thrash, is it does have a stacking effect. So I can cast an Iron Fur on myself. You can see I have 58,000 armor, and we'll generate a little bit more rage here. And I'll cast it again, and now you can see I have 2 stacks of Iron Fur. The first one fell off. Let me get a little bit more rage here. Kind of show you guys what we're talking about. Okay, we got full rage, so we can Iron Fur, and now you can see we have 118,000 armor. Now that does cap out at 2 stacks. You can't go up to 3 or 4, so just kind of keep that in mind. And this is something that you always want to have up. It's more important than Maul. But if you do have a bunch of rage that you're generating, you can't seem to spend it all, then of course you could dump it into Maul for a little bit more damage. Now we also have our Mangle ability here. So Mangle has a couple of different things that you'll kind of have to play around. So Mangle has a chance to actually reset its cooldown through some of the talents that we're taking. And Mangle is going to be one of your main rage generators. It's a single target ability and it deals additional damage to bleeding targets. So to show you what that looks like, right? You just come up here, and we can Mangle. You see it goes on cooldown. And then one thing that's unique about Mangle is it can actually reset its cooldown. And that's going to be due to this Gore talent here. So Thrash, Swipe, and Moonfire and Maul have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on Mangle. So we'll come in here and we'll attack this target dummy a little bit more. And you can see right here that it's glowing. You can see Gore, you got 5 seconds left on this proc. Its cooldown has been reset. And that means our Mangle will even generate even more rage when that proc happens. So kind of an FYI there. That's what's happening when you see that glow. Its cooldown is getting reset. And then we also have our Moonfire. And Moonfire has a couple different things going on with it as well. So if you're not sure what Moonfire is, it's just a beam. It's just a dot that you put on the target, and it will tick for damage. And by default, this will only hit 1 target. However, if you are running Twin Moonfire down here, you actually hit 2 targets at once. And this is a dot that you always want to keep up on all targets. So we'll Moonfire this training dummy, and you can see it actually hit 2 dummies at once. It hit one in the back as well. Now, where Moonfire is pretty strong is right above it, we have something called Galactic Guardian. Your damage has a 5% chance to trigger a free automatic Moonfire on that target. And when that happens, your next Moonfire is going to generate rage for us, and it's going to deal 300% increased damage. So we'll go back to these dummies and we'll attack them a little bit, and we'll see if we can get this to proc. Okay, so here it is. It's this little moon here on the left of us. You can see we have Galactic Guardian here, and we could press Moonfire now, and we use the proc, and that Moonfire did 300% more direct damage. And it also generated a little bit of rage for us. So you can see right off the bat, we do have a couple of procs that we're working off of. We have a proc on our Mangle. We have a proc on our Moonfire. Up next, we have our taunt. So if you never played tank before, all tanks have a taunt. And that if for whatever reason you lose aggro, you can taunt the target and force them to attack you. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about some defensive. So we talked about Iron Fur earlier. Iron Fur, again, it stacks up to 2 times, and you want to make sure that you're keeping 2 stacks at all times, no matter what. So I would get some sort of weak R or something to track this so you're not having to look up in the top right, something to warn you to say, hey, your Iron First stacks have fallen off. This is going to be the #1 way that you die in Mythic Plus is when these stacks fall off. This is the #1 biggest mistake. It's similar between Warrior and it's similar between Guardian Druid, is that you have these short cooldown defensives that you have to maintain uptime on. And if you miss it for just a couple seconds, you're going to be taking twice as much damage as you should be. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to make sure you do not drop stacks of your Iron Fur. Okay, now let's talk about Frenzied Regeneration. So it's on a 30-second recharge, heals you for 20% health over 5 seconds, and increases your healing received by 20%. So one thing that a lot of people don't know about Frenzied Regeneration is it actually heals more when you're low on health. And that is going to be due to, where is it at? Innate Resolve. So if we read this out, Frenzied Regeneration's healing is increased by up to 120% based on your missing health. So the more health that you're missing, the more that it's going to heal you for, up to double its original amount. So if we go back to the talent here, we can see 20% over 5 seconds. That could actually be up to 40% if you're really low on health. So something to keep in mind, use Frenzy Regeneration when you are lower on health rather than at 70-80% health. Truly use this as a defensive. Do not waste the charges on it. Up next, we also have our Incarnation, which is similar between a lot of the different Druid specs. They all have some sort of Incarnation. So this is the one for Guardian. An improved bear form that grants benefits to Berserk, causes Mangle to hit up to 3 targets, so it turns it into an AOE spell, and increases your max health by 30%. This will last for 30 seconds. So what this is doing, essentially, is it's taking your 3 Berserk. You have a Berserk Ravage, Berserk Persistence, Berserk Unchecked Aggression. It's combining all 3 of these, because if we see in blue here at the top, replaced by your Incarnation Guardian of Ursoc, whenever we press this button, we're getting all 3 of these effects at once. So just kind of FYI, when it says benefits of Berserk, that's what it's talking about, is these different Berserk nodes. Okay, another major defensive that we have is our Survival Instincts. On a 3-minute cooldown, reduces all damage we take by 60% for 6 seconds. And then one other talent that we're taking as well down here is Lunar Beam. So summons a beam of lunar light at your location, increasing your mastery by 30%, dealing arcane damage and healing you for 2.1 million over 11 seconds. So another major defensive that we have is going to be our Lunar Beam. Now, Lunar Beam is very core to, it's probably one of your most core cooldowns, because since we're running Elun's Chosen, when we type in Lunar Beam, you can see all the different nodes that light up. #1 here is going to be Boundless Moonlight. The Lunar Beam now causes you to leech life equal to 10% all damage dealt to enemies within the beam. And then down here, we have the Eternal Moon. Just further increases the power of our Boundless Moonlight. Makes it last 3 seconds longer and deal 30% increased damage, which means more healing. And then another thing that's really cool about this is over here on the right, Lunation. Your arcane abilities reduce the cooldown of Lunar Beam by 3 seconds. So if we come in here and we Lunar Beam, so we'll just go ahead and Lunar Beam, and we'll go ahead and attack these targets. Here's our beam that's down. And as we cast this Moonfire here, watch the cooldown on Lunar Beam. It's now 47 seconds. And you can just spam Moonfire. And each time you spam Moonfire, you're getting 3 seconds of CDR on your Lunar Beam. Now, you shouldn't do that. You should really just get your Moonfire dot up, use it when you get a proc of Moonfire through your Galactic Guardian. But just so you know, that's kind of how that works with your Lunar Beam. Okay, I think we covered pretty much all of the base sort of core spells. Let's get into the opener now. Oh, I actually didn't miss one spell here. This is going to be our, where's it at? Heart of the Wild. It's a 5-minute cooldown, and abilities not associated with your specialization are substantially empowered for 45 seconds. So if you cast a balance ability, the cast time of balance spells reduced by 30% and their damage is increased by 20%. A feral ability, you get combo points while you're in that cat form, and then restoration healing is increased by 30%. Mana cost reduced by 50%. So this will increase the healing of like our Frenzied Regeneration. Typically, you're just using this on pull, and you're just using it for the damage amp through the balance portion of this to get a little bit more damage out of our Moonfires. Heart of the Wild is actually stronger in Druid of the Claw than it is for Elun's Chosen, but we still take it. Save it up for a really hard pack. Go ahead and pop it. It lasts for a decent amount of time, right? It lasts for 45 seconds. So you're probably going to get like a couple Frenzy Regenerations in there to get that increased healing. as well as increased damage from your Moonfire. And this will also beef up the damage and healing that you get from your Lunar Beam as well. Okay, so just FYI on that, let's go ahead and get into the opener now. Okay, so this is going to be our opener. So kind of like we said earlier, when we were kind of talking about Heart of the Wild, you want to pretty much just pop this at the start of a pool, because all of that additional damage that we're doing through Heart of the Wild will kind of be converted into healing. So I like to think of Heart of the Wild almost like as an additional defensive. It is on a 5-minute cooldown and it is not quite as strong with these specific hero talents. It's a little bit stronger under Druid of the Claw, but you still want to use it. You still want to utilize it. So try to save this up for difficult pulls. From here, we're just managing our dots, right? We're going to make sure we get that Moonfire up. We're going to make sure we get our Thrash up. We want to maintain both of those. And then from here, this is where we'll use our Incarnation, and we'll get all of those different Berserk procs from this. Okay, now from here, we want to Thrash. We're going to get that second debuff stack up. We want to Mangle, get that on cooldown, and then Thrash again for that third debuff stack. We want to maintain these 3 Thrash stacks, because the more stacks you have, the more damage you do, the more rage that you'll generate. From here, we'll go into a Lunar Beam. And then from here, that's when you can go into a Maul. However, I would almost recommend to start with your Iron Fur stacks before you go into this. Really, Maul is going to be used as a rage dump on like any sort of boss that has like a burn phase, something like that. You're really going to be using most of your rage on Iron Fur. So I would recommend, after you get through this sort of opener here, you get your dots up, I would immediately start stacking Iron Fur, and I'd prioritize that over Maul. And we're not taking raise in this specific example, right? So we can just completely ignore that. Then from here, right, we want to continue to Thrash. We're going to keep our stacks up. And then we could go into a Frenzy Regeneration if you get low on health. Remember, you want to Frenzy Regeneration when you're lower on health rather than higher, because we get more value from a low health Frenzy Regeneration than a high health. And the final step here, we can use Swipe on our empty GCDs, but I would recommend to not even, I'd honestly recommend to just take Swipe off your bars and just Moonfire. And kind of like we said earlier, you can use Moonfire to get more CDR on our Lunar Beam. So if you have free GCDs, right? Like, let's say you have maximum stacks of Iron Fur, your Thrash is dotted up, Mangle's on cooldown, I would just go into spamming Moonfire, because that's going to give you more CDR on your Lunar Beam. Swipe really just doesn't have as much value because the damage from it is just so low. We'd rather just Moonfire for Lunar Beam CDR. So your typical opener would probably look something like this. You'll go into a Heart of the Wild. You'll dot everything up with your Moonfire. We will Thrash, Incarnation, Mangle, Thrash, Lunar Beam, and then we could Thrash again, and then we could start stacking Iron Fur, Thrash, Iron Fur, Thrash. And then from here, you can proceed on to your normal single target and AOE priority. So this is going to be your single target priority. We're not going to go through all this because it's so similar to your opener. But just know that once you do go through that opener, you're going to be resorting to a list like this in this specific priority. Moonfire takes priority over Thrash, which takes priority over Mangle. Give me your 3 made spells that you want to rotate through. 1, 5, 6, obviously. Just use your cooldowns. You can dump Rage with Maul. Just be careful with that, because you want Rage really for your Iron Fur more than anything. But if you have additional Rage, if you're in a burn phase, you can use that on Maul. And then again, Frenzy Regeneration if low on health, and fill with Moonfire. Again, I recommend a Moonfire spam over Swipe for the CDR on our our Lunar Beam. Okay, let's move on to AOE Priority. So AOE Priority, again, pretty much the same stuff as we just talked about. There is a couple differences here. So really steps 1 all the way through like 7 are the exact same. Through step 8 is the exact same. The only difference is Maul is not in here on AOE. You'll never use Maul in AOE. The one difference here is this Galactic Guardian proc. So one thing about Galactic Guardian is it will actually proc itself. So when this procs, you'll get the ticking timer, right? 15 seconds, you have to use it or it expires. However, if you get another Galactic Guardian proc, your current proc of Galactic Guardian will automatically cast Moonfire for you. What this means is we don't want to be wasting a global manually casting Moonfire unless we absolutely have to, because the Galactic Guardian will cast Moonfire for us automatically if you get another proc of it. So TLDR with this is only use your Galactic Guardian proc if it's below like 3 seconds. So I would get a weak R or something to track this proc and the remaining duration on it, because you will waste a significant amount of globals with Galactic Guardian if you're trying to manually cast this yourself. And another thing that I did miss in the single target portion, I forgot to include a Galactic Guardian in this in the single target priority, but just know that Galactic Guardian, you'll also be utilizing this in single target just like you do in AoE. So apologies, I did leave that out. That's in a very similar spot in that priority list. All right, guys, that's been to this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking, subscribing to the channel. See you on the next one.